The transport ship cut through the thin clouds of the distant world and began its slow descent. From the small window beside his seat, Ethan watched the surface come into view. The land below was rough and uneven, marked by long stretches of dark rock and pale soil. Smoke drifted in thin lines across the horizon. This was not a peaceful place. Ethan adjusted the strap of his armor and took a steady breath. He had been deployed many times before, but this mission felt different. The orders were clear: assist a mixed-species unit, secure evacuation zones, and protect civilians caught in a spreading conflict. The details were simple. The reality would not be. Around him, other soldiers prepared in silence. Some were human like him. Others were not. Different shapes, different armor designs, different ways of moving. The Alliance forces were used to working together, but trust between species was something that had to be built in action, not words. The ship landed with a heavy thud. "Move out," came the call. Ethan stepped onto the ground, boots crunching against rough stone. The air was thinner than Earth's, dry and sharp in his lungs. He scanned the area, rifle ready but lowered. The landing zone was quiet, but quiet never meant safe. That was when he saw Kara for the first time. She stood a few meters away, taller than most humans, her armor shaped to fit her strong frame. Her stance was solid, balanced, like someone who had learned to fight from a young age. Her eyes, sharp and focused, moved constantly, watching every direction at once. There was no fear in her posture. Only readiness. "This is Kara," the unit leader said over the comms. "Frontline warrior. She knows the terrain." Kara turned toward Ethan and the others. She gave a short nod, not friendly, not cold. Just honest. "We move fast," she said in clear, simple words. "This land changes quickly." Ethan nodded back. "Works for me." That was all they said at first. The unit began moving toward the first objective, a small settlement where civilians were gathering for evacuation. The path took them through broken ground and narrow passes. Kara moved at the front, silent and sure, signaling when to slow, when to stop. Ethan watched her closely. She did not waste motion. She did not hesitate. Every step had purpose. When she raised a hand, the unit stopped instantly. When she moved, they followed. During the first contact, everything happened fast. A sudden burst of movement from behind a ridge. Not a full attack but a test. Ethan dropped to one knee, covering the left side. Kara shifted right without a word, placing herself where the pressure was strongest. Their movements lined up without planning, without orders. Ethan noticed. When the threat faded, Kara glanced at him. "You hold ground well," she said. "You read movement fast," Ethan replied. That was the beginning. As the hours passed, small tests turned into real danger. The conflict on the planet was spreading unevenly, and enemy forces appeared without warning. Each time, Ethan and Kara found themselves fighting side by side. They were different in many ways. Ethan relied on training, clear orders, and steady control. Kara fought with deep emotion held tightly in check. When she struck, it was fast and direct, driven by something stronger than discipline alone. Still, they covered each other naturally. When Ethan reloaded, Kara stepped forward. When Kara paused to check the surroundings, Ethan took the open angle. They did not speak much, but trust grew in silence. During a short break near a rock formation, Ethan finally spoke again. "You've been here before," he said. Kara nodded. "This world borders my people's space. We protect what is close." Ethan considered that. "So this isn't just another mission for you?" "No," Kara said simply. There was weight in that word. As they moved again, Ethan noticed how Kara watched the horizon whenever they passed settlements. Her focus sharpened. Her jaw tightened slightly. This was not just duty. This was personal. The evacuation zone came into view by late cycle. A cluster of temporary shelters stood under a wide energy shield. Civilians waited inside, frightened but alive. Relief washed through Ethan as the first transport lifted off with evacuees aboard. But the mission was not over. Reports came in of pressure building nearby. Enemy units shifting. Time was short. Ethan and Kara were assigned to perimeter defense. They took position along a broken ridge overlooking the approach path. The ground here was unstable, filled with cracks and loose stone. Kara crouched beside him. "They will come from there," she said, pointing to a narrow pass. "They always do." Ethan nodded. "Then we hold here." They did. The next wave was heavier. Not overwhelming but strong enough to test resolve. Ethan felt the familiar rush of focus take over. Training guided his movements. He stayed calm, precise. Kara fought like a storm held in control. Every movement protected space behind them. Every strike pushed danger away from the evacuation zone. At one point, Ethan stumbled on loose ground. Before he could recover, Kara was there, pulling him back into cover with surprising strength. "Watch your step," she said sharply. Ethan caught his breath. "Thanks." She gave a short nod and returned to her position. Trust deepened. As the cycle neared its end, the unit received new orders. More civilians were being moved from deeper zones. Time would be tight. Defense would be harder. Ethan checked his gear and glanced at Kara. She stood still, eyes fixed on the distance. "Kara," he said quietly. She turned. "We'll get them out," Ethan said. "All of them we can." Kara studied his face for a moment as if weighing his words. "I will hold you to that," she said. There was no threat in her voice. Only hope mixed with fear. Neither of them knew what the next cycle would bring. Neither knew how far trust would be tested, or what choices would be forced upon them. But as they stood together on that broken ridge, guarding strangers from a war not their own, one thing was clear. They were no longer fighting alone. The evacuation continued through the next cycle, but the calm from before did not last. Ethan stood near a command post as updates flowed through the comms. Transport ships moved in and out of the shielded zone, carrying families, workers, elders, and children away from danger. Every successful lift felt like a small victory. Still, the pressure never eased. Reports showed enemy movement shifting closer. Time was slipping away. Kara stood a short distance from him, watching the crowd inside the shield. Her eyes moved constantly, searching faces, counting, checking. Ethan noticed her tension growing, like a wire pulled too tight. He did not interrupt her. Then the message came. Kara froze. At first, Ethan thought the comm had cut out. She stood perfectly still, one hand pressed to the side of her helmet, listening. Her breathing changed. Shorter. Faster. "No," she said quietly. Ethan turned toward her. "Kara?" She did not answer him. Her eyes widened slightly and her shoulders stiffened. She lowered her hand from the comm and looked past Ethan, past the shield, toward the broken land beyond. "They are there," she said. Her voice shook. "My family. They were moving toward the zone. They didn't make it." Ethan felt a cold weight settle in his chest. "How far?" he asked carefully. "Beyond the safe line," Kara replied. "Past the ridge. The fighting closed the path." She turned fully toward him now. The strong, controlled warrior he had fought beside was still there, but something else was breaking through. Fear. Raw and unguarded. "They are alive," she said. "I know they are. I can feel it." Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but the comms interrupted. "All units," command said. "Evacuation window closing. Prepare final lift. Perimeter teams fall back in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Ethan looked at Kara. Her hands clenched into fists. Her breathing grew uneven. "No," she said again, louder this time. "We can still reach them." "Kara," Ethan began. She stepped closer, towering over him now, not with threat, but with desperation. "Please," she said. "They are not soldiers. They are not fighters. They are my blood." Ethan had seen fear before. He had heard screams in battle, seen loss in many forms. But this was different. This was a warrior facing something she could not fight with strength alone. "I can't leave them," Kara said. Her voice cracked. "I won't." Her control shattered then. She dropped to one knee, one hand pressed into the dirt, the other covering her face. Her shoulders shook. The proud warrior was gone, replaced by someone who was terrified of being alone. Ethan knelt beside her without thinking. "Kara," he said softly. "Listen to me." She looked up at him. Her eyes were wet, shining in the dim light. "They will die if we leave," she said. "I can't lose them. I can't." The words hit Ethan hard. He thought of his own family far away on Earth. He imagined being told to leave them behind. The thought made his chest ache. The comms spoke again. "Perimeter teams fall back now. This is your final warning." Ethan closed his eyes for a brief moment. Orders were clear. Evacuation came first. If perimeter teams stayed too long, ships would be lost. Civilians already inside the zone would be trapped. Hundreds of lives balanced on every decision. He knew this. Kara knew it too. That knowledge only made her pain worse. She grabbed Ethan's arm. "Please," she said. "Just help me reach them. I will go alone if I must." "You won't," Ethan said firmly. She stared at him, searching his face for an answer. For hope. For refusal. For anything. Ethan looked past her, toward the distant ridge. Smoke rose in thin columns. The land between was unstable, dangerous. Enemy patrols moved without pattern. It was a death trap. "Kara," Ethan said slowly. If we go past the line without support. They are my family, she cut in. Orders mean nothing to me without them. The comms buzzed again, sharper now. Ethan, report. Are you falling back? All eyes were on him now. Other soldiers watched from nearby positions. They did not speak, but they understood the weight of the moment. Ethan stood. He looked at Kara, still kneeling in the dirt, her strength bent under grief. He heard the command waiting for his answer. This was the choice. Duty against compassion. Many against few. Mission against one broken warrior who trusted him. Ethan felt his heart pound. He remembered how Kara had pulled him to safety. How she had guided the unit through danger. How she had trusted him without question. He pressed the comm button but did not answer yet. Kara, he said quietly. If I say no, will you still try? She met his eyes. Yes. That answer scared him more than anything. Ethan exhaled slowly. He knew there was no easy answer. No perfect outcome. Whatever he chose, someone would suffer. The comms crackled again. Ethan, respond now. Ethan looked once more at the evacuation zone. At the civilians waiting. At the ships preparing to lift. Then he looked at Kara. Her pain was real. Her loss would be permanent. Ethan made his choice. Not yet spoken. But already felt. And once made, there would be no turning back. The command channel stayed open, waiting for Ethan's reply. Ethan, the voice said again, firmer now. Fall back immediately. This is a direct order. Ethan stood still for a moment longer than allowed. Dust drifted across the ground between him and the evacuation zone. Transport engines hummed, ready to lift. Time was running out. Behind him, Kara cried out. I can't lose them, she said, her voice breaking again. Please. I won't survive it. Ethan turned away from the command post and looked at her. She was no longer trying to hide her fear. Tears ran freely now, cutting lines through the dirt on her face. Her hands shook as she pressed them together, as if holding herself in one piece. Ethan felt the weight of the moment settle deep inside him. He had been trained for war. He had been trained to follow orders. He had been trained to accept loss. But no training had prepared him for this. Kara, he said calmly, forcing his voice to stay steady. Listen to me. She looked up at him, hope and fear fighting in her eyes. If we rush in without thinking, Ethan continued, we lose everything. Your family. The evac zone. Everyone. She swallowed hard. Then what do we do? Ethan looked toward the map display glowing on his wrist. Routes. Terrain. Patrol paths. Weak points. He scanned it fast, his mind working faster than fear. There's another way, he said slowly. Kara frowned. What way? Ethan activated the comm again, but this time he switched channels. Not command. Unit-wide. All perimeter teams, Ethan said. Maintain positions. Do not advance. Do not retreat. Hold for 5 minutes. There was silence. Then confusion. Ethan, that's not, someone began. Ethan cut the channel. He turned back to Kara. I'm not abandoning the evac, he said. And I'm not leaving your family. Her eyes widened. That's not possible. It is, Ethan replied. But it's dangerous. She stood quickly. I don't care. I do, Ethan said. That's why you listen. He pointed toward the far ridge. There's an old maintenance path. Not on most maps. I saw it during the first patrol. Narrow. Hidden. Kara hesitated. Enemy patrols? Light, Ethan said. Unpredictable. But manageable. Kara stared at him, trying to understand. That path won't hold a full unit. I know, Ethan said. Realization hit her. You mean just us? Yes. The wind picked up, carrying distant sounds of conflict. The evacuation ships powered up louder now. Command would not wait much longer. If we go, Kara said slowly, you risk court-martial. Prison. Worse. Ethan gave a small, tired smile. I know. Why would you do this? She asked. Ethan met her gaze. Because if I don't, I'll carry that choice forever. He tapped his comm once more, this time opening command. Command, Ethan said clearly. I have eyes on a possible civilian group beyond the safe zone. Requesting 5-minute delay. The reply came sharp and cold. Denied. Evacuation priority remains unchanged. Fall back now. Ethan closed the channel. That was it. He looked at Kara. We move fast. Quiet. No hero moves. She nodded hard. I will follow you. They moved. The maintenance path was barely visible, just as Ethan remembered. A shallow cut in the rock, hidden by shadows and broken stone. They slipped into it as the sound of transport engines rose behind them. Every step felt like stolen time. They moved low and slow, scanning constantly. The land here felt different. Closer. Tighter. The air seemed to press in on them. Kara moved ahead now, senses sharp, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Ethan followed, watching her back, trusting her instincts. They froze as distant movement crossed the ridge above them. Ethan held his breath. The figures passed. They moved again. After long minutes that felt like hours, Kara stopped suddenly. She raised her hand and pointed. There. A small group huddled near the remains of a broken structure. Shapes too still to be soldiers. Too small. Kara gasped softly. That's them. Ethan scanned the area quickly. No immediate threats. No alarms. Go, he whispered. Now. Kara ran. She reached them in seconds, dropping to her knees, gathering them into her arms. Voices rose in shock, then relief. Tears. Soft sounds of reunion. Ethan stood guard, heart pounding. Every second here was a risk. Kara, he urged. We have to move. She nodded, still holding them close. Thank you, she said, voice shaking. Thank you. They guided the group back toward the path, moving faster now but still careful. Ethan checked his comm signal spiked. Enemy movement shifting. They were running out of time. As they reached the edge of the maintenance path, a distant explosion echoed. Not close, but closer than before. Ethan didn't stop. Keep moving, he said. They broke into the open ground just as the evacuation zone came back into view. A transport was lifting off. Another waited. Ethan activated the comm again. Evac control, this is Ethan. I have civilians inbound. Hold one ship. There was a pause. Then a voice replied, uncertain. We see you. Hold position. They ran. Shots cracked in the distance, but none hit close. The shield loomed ahead, glowing bright. They crossed the line. The shield sealed behind them with a deep hum. Silence followed. For a moment, no one moved. Then Kara turned to Ethan and dropped to one knee again, not in weakness but in gratitude. You saved them, she said. All of them. Ethan felt his legs tremble as the weight finally hit him. He hadn't saved everyone yet. Command would come. Consequences would follow. But for this moment, he had chosen a path no order could give him. The third path. And whatever came next, he would face it standing. The ground shook as they moved. Ethan felt it through his boots first, a low vibration that made the loose stones around them shift and slide. The land beyond the safe zone was breaking down under constant pressure. Old tunnels collapsed without warning. Cracks spread across the surface like veins. Stay close, Ethan said. Kara nodded and kept her family behind her. She placed herself between them and the open land, her body tense, alert to every sound. Fear still lived in her eyes, but something else was there now too. Trust. They had not gone far when the first blast of enemy fire struck the ridge behind them. Not close enough to hit, but close enough to remind them that they were seen. Ethan raised his hand. Down. They dropped low as energy bolts passed overhead, cutting bright lines through the dusty air. The sound echoed strangely in the broken terrain. They've spotted us, Kara said. I know, Ethan replied. We keep moving. They pushed forward, staying low, using broken stone and sharp rises in the land as cover. The path Ethan remembered was there, but it was worse than before. Parts had collapsed completely. Other sections hung over deep cracks that dropped into darkness. One of Kara's younger family members hesitated at the edge of a narrow crossing. I can't, they said softly. Ethan stepped forward without thinking. He removed his pack and laid it across the gap to give better footing. Look at me, he said calmly. Step where I step. The young one followed him, shaking but steady. Another tremor rolled through the ground. Small rocks fell into the cracks below, vanishing before they hit anything. Kara watched Ethan carefully. He did not rush them. He did not shout. Even with danger closing in, he stayed calm. Focused. That calm gave strength to everyone else. Enemy fire struck closer now. A bolt hit the rock near Ethan, sending shards into the air. Kara moved instantly, stepping in front of him, her body angled to shield. No, Ethan said sharply, pulling her back. Not like that. He stepped forward instead, placing himself between Kara and the incoming fire. His shield flared as another bolt struck, the impact rattling through his arm. You don't protect me alone, he said. We do this together. Kara stared at him for a second, then nodded. They moved again. The terrain narrowed into a tight pass, walls rising on both sides. It felt like a trap. Sound echoed too easily. Movement was limited. Too tight. Kara whispered. I know, Ethan said. But it's the fastest way. As they entered the pass, enemy fire intensified. Shots struck the walls, sparks flashing around them. One blast sent a shockwave through the ground, knocking everyone off balance. Ethan fell hard, pain flashing through his side. Before he could push himself up, Kara was there, grabbing his arm, pulling him back behind cover. Are you hurt? She demanded. I'm fine, Ethan said, though his breath came fast. Keep them moving. Another blast struck close. Dust filled the air. Visibility dropped. Ethan activated a short-range signal flare and tossed it behind them. A decoy. It flashed bright, drawing attention away from their position. Move, he said. They ran. The pass opened suddenly into a wide, broken field. Beyond it, the faint glow of the evacuation shield was visible. So close. Too close to fail now. But the ground here was worse. Cracks split the surface in long, uneven lines. Some were wide enough to swallow a person whole. The land groaned beneath their feet. Kara led her family carefully, choosing each step with care. Ethan stayed behind them, watching the horizon, tracking movement. Enemy units crested the ridge behind them. We're out of time, Kara said. Ethan scanned the area quickly. There, he said, pointing. Old support beams. They'll hold. They ran for it. As they crossed the open ground, fire rained down around them. Ethan felt heat pass close to his shoulder. He stumbled but kept moving. One of Kara's family slipped, sliding toward a widening crack. Kara screamed. Ethan dove forward without hesitation. He grabbed the falling figure and felt the ground shift beneath him. For a moment he thought they would both fall. Kara grabbed Ethan's arm with both hands, pulling with everything she had. Together they dragged the person back to solid ground. The crack widened where Ethan had been moments before. They didn't stop. The support beam stood ahead, part of an old structure half buried in the ground. Ethan guided everyone beneath it just as another blast struck nearby, collapsing part of the field behind them. Dust and debris filled the air. Silence followed. For a moment no one spoke. No one moved. Then the evacuation shield flared brighter ahead. They were close enough now. Ethan activated his comm evac control. We're inbound. Multiple civilians. The reply came quickly. We see you. Move fast. They ran again, last strength pulled from deep inside. As they crossed the shield line, the world changed. The air grew calm. Sound softened. The chaos stayed behind. The shield sealed. Enemy fire struck the barrier and stopped. Everyone froze. Then Kara fell to her knees, pulling her family close. She laughed and cried at the same time, holding them as if afraid they would disappear. Ethan stood nearby, chest heaving, pain finally catching up with him. He leaned on his rifle to stay upright. Kara looked up at him. Her eyes were full, not with fear now but with something deeper. You could have left, she said quietly. You didn't. Ethan shrugged weakly. Didn't feel right. She stood and stepped closer. Slowly, with great care, she placed her hand over her chest and bowed her head. You showed me what courage truly is, she said. Not strength. Not orders. Choice. Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. Around them, evacuation crews moved quickly, guiding civilians toward safety. The mission continued. But something had changed. Kara looked at Ethan not just as a soldier, but as proof of what humans truly were. And she would never forget it. The last transport ship lifted from the ground with a low, steady hum. Ethan stood near the edge of the evacuation zone, watching the light fade as the ship disappeared into the sky. The shield remained active for a few moments longer, then slowly powered down. Silence followed, deep and heavy, like the world itself was finally able to breathe. It was over. Every signal confirmed it. Every count matched. No missing names. No unanswered calls. Every life had been saved. Ethan felt his shoulders sink as the weight he had been carrying finally released. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear now, but from exhaustion. His body ached in places he had not noticed before. Bruises, burns, strain. All of it rushed in at once. He didn't mind. Kara stood a few steps away, surrounded by her family. They were seated on the ground, holding one another, speaking softly in their own language. Some laughed through tears. Others simply stayed quiet, afraid the moment might break if they spoke too loudly. Kara slowly stepped away from them. She walked toward Ethan. He turned when he sensed her approach. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The noise of the evacuation crews faded into the background. The broken land around them looked calmer now, almost peaceful in the fading light. Then Kara did something Ethan did not expect. She lowered herself to one knee. Ethan stiffened immediately. Kara, don't. She raised one hand, stopping him. Her expression was serious, but her eyes were full. Not with pain this time. With gratitude. In my culture, she said, her voice steady but soft, we kneel only when words are not enough. Ethan swallowed. You gave me back my family, Kara continued. You risked your mission. Your future. Your life. Not because you were ordered to, but because you chose to. Tears slipped down her face. She did not wipe them away. I will carry that debt for as long as I live. Ethan shook his head slowly. You don't owe me anything. Yes, Kara said. I do. But more than that, I honor you. She stood and placed her hand over her chest again, bowing her head in a formal gesture. Around them, others noticed. A few alien soldiers mirrored the motion. Human troops stood in quiet respect, unsure but aware that something important was happening. Ethan felt heat rise behind his eyes. He had never wanted recognition. Never asked for it. But this felt different. Kara, he said gently, I just did what anyone should. She looked at him closely. That is what makes it matter. Later, as the temporary base settled into shutdown procedures, Ethan was called before command. The tone was serious, formal. He expected anger, punishment, questions. Instead, the room was quiet. The officers listened as reports played back. Timelines. Sensor data. Civilian counts. The final result stood clear. Mission success. Lives saved. The delay had not caused loss. The risk had paid off. You acted without authorization, one officer said at last. Ethan nodded. Yes, sir. You disobeyed a direct order. Yes, sir. There was a pause. And you saved every civilian in the zone, the officer finished. Another silence followed. Finally, the lead officer leaned back slightly. You'll receive a formal review. Protocol requires it. But understand this, what you did will be studied, not buried. Ethan exhaled slowly. Understood. When he left the room, his steps felt lighter. In the days that followed, the story spread. Not as a dramatic tale of battle or victory, but as a quiet account of a choice. A human soldier who refused to abandon someone in pain. A mission completed without leaving anyone behind. At first it moved through the ranks, then across species lines. Kara spoke openly about it when asked. She did not exaggerate. She did not turn Ethan into a legend. She told the truth, simply and clearly. He could have left, she said every time. He chose not to. Other aliens listened. Some had believed humans were too emotional, too reckless, too divided. This story challenged that belief. They began to see humans differently. Not just as fighters or builders but as protectors. As beings who carried responsibility in their hearts, not just in orders. Requests followed. Human officers were asked to join joint councils. Human soldiers were requested for peacekeeping roles. Not because they were stronger, but because they stayed. Ethan returned to duty quietly. He did not chase attention. He trained. He helped rebuild. He answered questions when asked and stayed silent when not. Sometimes he thought about that moment when Kara had knelt. Sometimes he wondered what might have happened if he had chosen differently. He was glad he never had to know. Before Kara and her people departed the world, she sought Ethan out one last time. They stood near the edge of the landing field as her transport prepared to leave. My people will remember you, she said. Not your name alone, but what you showed us. Ethan smiled faintly. I hope they remember the lesson, not the person. She returned the smile. They will remember both. She paused, then added, if our paths cross again, you will never stand alone. Ethan nodded. I'll hold you to that. Her transport lifted soon after, rising into the sky and vanishing among the stars. Ethan watched until it was gone. The world around him moved on. New missions came. New conflicts. New choices. But the story remained. Across the Alliance, a simple truth took root. When others turned away, humans stayed. When others counted losses, humans counted lives. And when faced with impossible choices, humanity did not look for the easiest path, but the right one.